went to Ohio State. And when I was thinking about where I wanted to go to school, as a high school student, I'll even go back a little further. And my high school was fairly large, but it was also like many high schools. You had sort of the in kids and the out kids, and I was on the out, you know. And so when I was thinking about college, really wanted to try to find a place where I didn't have to be defined by who my friends were, who my interests were, and also just wanted to find a place that was big and would allow me to kind of do what I wanted and in that sort of big open environment. And at that time, when I first started, consulting was speaking a bit more to me because I
Mm,
liked the idea of being able to kind of go into a situation, diagnose what's going on, and try to come up with solutions that would be appropriate. And had the opportunity as a grad student to work on a couple consulting projects. And my first experience was we were working for a client who had an assessment that they used during the hiring process, and they were looking about ways to make it better. Had the opportunity to teach some undergraduate courses in statistics, which were required of all psych undergraduate majors, and really started to enjoy the idea of having to understand a topic so well to be able to communicate it to learners inside and out. So you kind of had to know it not only from the sort of, experts perspective, but also from the novices perspective, and that you had to know what their questions would be so that you could kind of be able to explain it in ways that would resonate with students. I
yeah.
enjoyed being in the classroom, and around the same time started to develop some research interests um, as well. And so that was kind of what set me off onto the path of wanting to pursue a career in academia versus consulting. The idea of justice or fairness just really started to speak to me about fundamentally why you need to treat people fairly
Yeah.
in whatever you do. And so had the chance to work with him on a couple projects related to fairness and fair treatment, and how can employees and leaders work to ensure that what they're doing is fair, especially at times when you can't always give people what they want, and there's ways to mitigate sort of people's perceptions that this is not fair. And so there's ways of communicating how you're treating people. There's ways of making people feel like they're valued and appreciated that can ultimately impact how fairly, sort of people's reactions to those situations. I could say counterproductive behaviors kind of range the spectrum from more mild, seemingly innocuous behaviors that signal sort of low level rudeness or disrespect. And those would be sort of the uncivil behaviors that you might see. So someone who um, doesn't include you on an important email that you should be included in, you
Yeah.
know, it's sort of a low level slight, which to some extent could also be dismissed as, I didn't intentionally forget to include you on this. I was just rushing and I forgot to include you. But nevertheless, in the eye of the target or the person who experiences it's rude, and it doesn't necessarily signal a lot of respect.
Yeah.
And I think the volume of electronic communication that we use and operate by,
Hmm.
just amplifies this as an issue because, when you've got 20 things going on and you're sending out a meeting notice, you very well could completely accidentally forget to leave someone, or leave someone off. And it
Sure.
is not rude. It's just, I wasn't focused on what I should be doing. Or it could be a subtle dig against them, like,
Yeah.
hey, I've got a little bit more power than you, and I'm gonna, show you
Yeah.
that I can do that by excluding you. So I think your assume best intent, give people the benefit of the doubt, is a good place to start. depending on who is instigating this, there's also ways of leveraging other resources, hopefully within the organization, to potentially try to help navigate it. Some of it is, the conversations, the hallway conversations that you have with your colleagues, is realizing, is this person seemingly targeting me for some reason and not others? Or is this the way that they communicate with a lot of other people? And so sometimes strength in numbers is appreciating this person is a little bit of a jerk to everyone. And so when you're on the receiving end, you can almost take a little comfort in knowing that their communication is just abrupt and impolite and more severe than it needs to be, but they're that way with everybody.
With everyone.
And so you could clearly choose to confront, or you could also say, it's not me, it's them.
Yeah.
And to some extent that also could help cope or explain a little bit about what's going on. Part of this was informed by research done by others that looks at how overweight individuals are treated differently in the formal hiring processes and how their performance is formally evaluated differently, how people who are larger size are not paid the same. And the research there is clear that larger individuals tend to be hired at lower rates, compensated at lower rates. Their performance is not valued as highly as it should be. And a lot of it boils down to the belief that people who are larger are not competent. They are not as smart as their thin counterparts, and that they are not as likable individuals either.